Hi, my name is Ian, and welcome to our very first WPL Live. I'm currently a 7th grade student, and I'm excited to ask a couple questions to a few teachers today and to chat with them. Mrs. Fraser, how are you?
I'm good, Ian. How are you?
I'm fine too. What is one thing that you think that you did great this year?
I did great this year. I think I managed to encourage the students to gain independence and self-reliance. They were able to organize their materials and keep track of what they had to do, which is not easy for a child of first grade. They're 6 years old when they start. But they've done a really amazing job. And I think a lot of that has to do with just taking them step by step and answering as many questions as possible.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think has been especially challenging this year?
Most challenging thing has been the fact that they are very young. First grade is absolutely a foundational year of school. When they come to class, it's not just the academics that they're coming for. They socialize, they learn how to interact with each other, work in groups, switch throughout the day, throughout their schedule, going outside, coming back inside, having lunch together. All of those things are completely absent. Teaching math without having them be able to come up and grab some of the manipulatives, whether they're teddy bears or tanagrams or what have you. So putting together toolkits and making sure that they had them, and making sure that I could think ahead to everything they were going to need for the next 25 lessons. Because that's all they were going to have in front of them. The challenges of that were quite something.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for answering my questions. And I'll move on to Mrs. Hanks. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm also okay.
Nice.
What do you think has been especially challenging this year and why?
I really think teaching online and adapting my teaching to teaching the kids online, like in preparing enough materials for them to have everything for 2 weeks or 4 weeks worth of things to do. It's been a challenge.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think is something that you did great this year?
I really feel like the kids have really stepped up, despite all the challenges and all the differences and the new things they've been asked to do, and sitting on their bums for 8 hours a day. I feel like they've really risen to the occasion. They are able to communicate and laugh and organize their papers in a way that makes the day go by sort of quickly and allows them to learn so many things that I was hoping they could learn this year. So I'm really proud of them and all they've learned.
Okay, thank you for answering my questions. And now I'll move on to Mrs. Fischel. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Okay, and what is one thing that you think is one of the better things this year?
I think one of the better things that has happened this year is that I have learned more about how they work the computers and things like that, because they were actually more familiar with working the computer than what I was. And they've helped me a great deal. And I have just enjoyed learning from them, as well as seeing them learn from me.
Mm-hmm. And what is one thing that you found is challenging, either for you or for the students?
What I found challenging was that I couldn't walk around and see, like specifically during math class, check their papers after I taught a new skill, check their papers and see that they had actually learned it, or that I could help them by changing just 1 or 2 things on their papers so that they would get it correct.
Mm-hmm.
That one-on-one contact with the kids individually as they're learning is what was, I think, the hardest thing.
Yeah, and what do you think was challenging for the students?
I think that what was challenging for the students was that they had a hard time coming up to ask a specific question right at the time that they needed the answer. Because many of the students, especially at sixth grade, they're self-conscious and they don't want the other kids to see that they're asking the teacher a question, and therefore they may feel not happy with themselves in the way that they've expressed it and the way that the other students may have seen them express it.
Okay, thank you for answering my questions. And Mr. Fong, how are you?
I'm doing good today, Ian.
What do you think is one thing that you did great this year?
I think this year the greatest thing that I accomplished was learning how to incorporate technology into my class. As a PE teacher, before probably the most technology I used was like a stopwatch or maybe music playing with the class. And this year I've learned how to use apps. I've learned how to use videos. I've learned how to use all these things to track kids exercising. And I think it's actually going to be useful for when we go back in learning too. For instance, we'll be able to use if it's raining, we could use an app to go running instead. Or if, there's a big class, a certain group can do exercises on technology while others do it in person. So I think that's the biggest thing I've been able to accomplish personally this year.
Yeah, and what are some of your examples of the adaptations that you use?
Probably the biggest one is this one app called Home Court, where basically I'm able to set up games as opposed to basketball tournaments, soccer tournaments, volleyball tournaments, etc. We're doing competitions such as like who reacts the fastest in 1 minute, who can, jump over invisible boxes and invisible cones the best and rack up the best scores in a minute, and just able to engage kids in games that, I didn't normally do beforehand, which I do now. So I feel like I've really expanded my PE teacher toolbox, especially just technology-wise.
And what do you think has been especially challenging this year and why?
Oh, the most challenging thing is just, like before 80% of my lessons involved a ball or an object, of some type. And this year, all my lessons, don't involve those things. We tried in the beginning. Like parents are worried about their houses staying up the entire year. But yeah, it's been a real challenge to just, like learn new things. I haven't gotten a chance to, like shoot a basketball or throw a dodgeball at a kid all year. And, I've had to go about my lessons in other ways. So that's been the most challenging part, is just stepping outside of my normal lessons.
Thank you for answering my questions. And Ms. Hashi, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ian. How are you doing tonight?
I'm also doing well. What do you think is one of the best things that you did this year, or best things that you accomplished?
I think honestly the best thing that I accomplished this year was being able to have that one-on-one time with students that I really felt was lacking at the end of last year when we started this distance learning. So I've been having a lot of after-school lessons with students, but it's been really rewarding, and it seems to be paying off.
And what was something that you found challenging this year?
With everybody having different types of technology, it's been extremely taxing. Right now we're doing Excel, and when you're trying to format cells and you're trying to put in different rules and different conditional formatting, but somebody's on an iPad, somebody's on a Chromebook, somebody's on a laptop, somebody's on their cell phone, it can be a little bit taxing. But we're making it happen. We're working it.
And joining us now is Mrs. Murphy, the vice principal of our school. And
hi.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. Thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
And Ms. Frazier, what do you think would be the most important or challenging thing when students start going back to school again?
Honestly, I think the challenge is going to be that while they've been in their homes, they can go maskless. They can hug their families if they choose. The natural tendency of a first grader is to hug and touch a lot. all the time. And right now that's not a problem. But when they return, they're going to have to pay very, very close attention to how close they are to one another, amount of space when they're lining up, when they're sitting down, touching materials, which normally in first grade, I'm happy for them to go up and randomly pick a book or take a handful of counting bears out of the counting bear jar. And all of that is going to have to be a completely different system, and they're going to have to constantly be aware of their surroundings and what they're touching and who's near them. And it's not a natural way of thinking for someone of that age. So I think that's absolutely going to be a challenge for them.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Fong, what are your ongoing strategies for retaining the attention of your students during online classes?
Wow. I mean, I struggle with this even in person sometimes. What I do is I try to just keep things varied. I never try to keep my class repetitive. Even sometimes within one class, there'll be an options or different things that students can do. And I try to have something that everybody can enjoy. So whether it's, like a super intense workout video for certain kids, or whether it's just, going for a walk and keeping track of how much distance or calories you burn that day. I like to have different goals for different students. And that's what helps me, I feel, keep everybody engaged.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Murphy, WPLS is planning to offer Mandarin as a foreign language to kindergarten to 5th grade in the upcoming school year. Why do you think this is a valuable and great opportunity, and how did you come up with offering Mandarin?
Oh, that's a great question, Ian. We came up with offering Mandarin mostly through parent feedback and parent requests. We know that we have a large Chinese-speaking, Mandarin-speaking community in our school. So parents are interested, and we try our best to listen to parents when they tell us things. I want to say, as sort of a little plug for learning languages anyway, though, I don't know if you know this, but Mandarin is the most widely spoken language in the world. So we think, in addition to honoring parents' needs, it's just a great service. It's a great tool to give students to the ability to learn another language and to study it in school.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Ms. Hayashi, how do you keep your students' attention during class?
I randomly call on them to share their screens to help teach. One of the best ways to prove that you understand a concept is to be able to teach it to somebody else. So my students are brilliant. And so a lot of times we do a lot of peer one-on-one workshops so that the students can help each other, so that I know what they're, I know that they understand the concepts that we're learning. But I constantly keep them on their feet by offering them extra credit points to either do a happy dance in the middle of the class, or to share their Excel spreadsheet but only explain it using a foreign language or an accent of some sort. Or we do theme days where we will all be wearing hats. So I try to keep it fun. I try to keep it light because they're learning a lot in a very small window of time. So we have to stay focused.
Mm-hmm. And Mrs. Fischel, when the students start going back to school again, what do you think will be especially challenging for you?
Well, one of the things that they haven't done is a lot of in-person conversation with their friends. And I think that I'm just going to have to allow them to have time to have that one-on-one conversation with each other, with small groups of people and things like that. And because I can see it that they are craving it, even as we're on the computer together, that they're craving to talk to the other students. And I think that by having small group discussions and things like that, and then just let them freely talk.
I was just reflecting and listening actually to all the answers and the comments that the teachers were giving. And I thought it's such an interesting time that we're in right now, isn't it? We're also connected because of technology. We all have iPads and Chromebooks and headsets. But at the same time, we're a little bit disconnected. So it's really nice to come together as a group and to talk about the challenges that we're sharing, and then also to celebrate the things that we're doing right, and also to look forward to a time when we can all come back to school in person. So this has been a great opportunity, and thanks for your excellent questions, Ian. I was really happy to be here.
And we would like to hear questions from the parents and audience as well. So please feel free to send questions through the chat. And now we will begin our live Q&A. The other teachers are not with us tonight, but today we have Ms. Ohashi, who's the computer teacher, Mrs. Murphy, who's our vice principal, and Mrs. Ankerman, who's our principal. And Ms. Ohashi, how do you help students who might experience learning loss this past year due to virtual learning to catch up and be ready for the next school year?
That has been a big concern of a lot of parents, but I want to assure you, your students are doing great. Test scores prove that the kids have been doing really well. But the kids who are struggling, and there are a few, we have spent a lot of time one-on-one with those students. I know myself and other teachers have had special tutoring days. I have reoccurring tutoring days with plenty of students. So we are really focusing on the students who need help. We definitely like to do one-on-ones with them.
And how do you help students to get readjusted to in-person interactions on campus?
That one's going to be a little bit more difficult because our natural nature, I mean, I know I'm going to want to hug a lot of students that I haven't seen all year, but it's just going to have to take repetition, conditioning, and following the rules. We're just going to have to repeat them every day, and the more we repeat them, the more we live them. And it'll definitely be an adjustment for because we are such a close community. It's hard not to shake hands, high five, fist bump, talk to each other, and pass notes. So it'll be something that we're all going to work on together. I don't think any one of us will be make that transition easily, but I think knowing that everybody's on the same page and on the same boat will be fine.
And Mrs. Murphy, how have you, or how would you help students to get readjusted to in-person learning on campus?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question, and it's on everybody's minds these days. We're getting ready to reopen the school on April 12th and April 19th. So everybody, parents, administration, teachers, we're all wondering, what's it going to be like, and how can we help them? I think the first thing we can do, honestly, is just try to be patient with ourselves and try to be patient with the students, right? We're all coming to this from different places at different speeds. So as long as we know that, then I think we're off to a good start. The next thing we really need to do is to come together, just like Ms. Ohashi was saying, as a community, right? We need to realize that all of us teachers, even if we're teaching different grades or different subjects, we're all part of the same team. So we'll need to come together, work together, and to figure out what do we need to do as teachers to pull the students back in the right direction. So flexibility and patience, yeah.
And Mrs. Ankerman, what are some positive things that you have learned from this experience? Oh, you're muted. Oh, I think you're still muted.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Most of us only think of negative things that have happened in the last year. So having a positive question is actually very good. The first, obviously, is that I think everyone has improved their technology skills beyond what they ever imagined. I know I certainly have. And that has been a good thing. The other thing that we don't necessarily think about, because now we've just been together so long, is that I think we've spent more quality time with our families, and our parents have spent time with our kids, and we're not driving our kids to this activity, that activity. We actually have to talk. We have to live together. So that is another good one. It's just getting reacquainted as people. Unfortunately, that's just families, and our friends, we've kind of lost that. But great time for the families. I know that some families have rediscovered or have discovered first board games and card games and different ways to entertain themselves, going on walks, the physical things. I think all of those are great. And then the last one is that maybe most of us have found some new activity or skill to work on, whether it's, for me, it was cooking and baking. Maybe for someone else is sewing or art. I know some of those things have happened. So there is some good that came out of even this really bad disease.
Mm-hmm. And Mrs. Murphy, this question is for you. Where do you see the school going in the next 3 to 5 years?
Ooh, that's such a big question. Well, let me think. I think that one of the things I love the most about Westport Lutheran School is that we really see a combination of tradition, right? The school's we're celebrating our 70th anniversary. But also we have a lot of young teachers and a lot of awesome technology, thanks Ms. Ohashi. So I think it'll be moving in that same direction where we can find a balance between keeping the tradition that we have and new technology, new resources, new ways of doing things. That'll be, I think, the most important thing. And if we can do that as administrators and as teachers, then we're going to model that for our students. And that balance is really important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Ms. Ohashi, as you know, we may be transitioning back to school in the next few months. What are some resources that parents can have or get from the school?
That's an excellent question. Resources, definitely use your teachers. We are the biggest resource you have. No questions too small, no questions too silly. Please don't ever feel that we're too busy to help, because we want to help. And I think that the more that you can communicate with your child's teacher, the better. We also do, we will happily, or I will happily help out anybody with any technology needs. But again, if you do have technology issues, just let your teacher know, let me know. But I think that would be the biggest resource I could say, is use your teachers.
Mm-hmm. And Ms. Murphy, besides Mandarin, do you have any other new initiatives that we may consider to add to the curriculum?
I want to say that we want to add 5 more languages. Anybody who knows me well knows that I love languages, and I think it's just such a great skill and great tool to give our students. No more languages besides Mandarin. We are talking a lot with Pastor Kerr about not adding to our religion curriculum, but really sort of expanding it or making it a little bit more robust. So our students can really start digging into the religion curriculum and thinking about how we can use it in everyday life, right? We're not just memorizing Bible stories or learning about things from the Bible, which is really important, but learning ways to apply things, in our lives, in school and outside of the school. I think that'll be a good addition. And like most schools around the world too, these days we're talking a lot about differentiation and we're talking a lot about growth mindset. So I think we'll start to see more of those conversations happening inside our classrooms with students and with teachers as well. Yeah, great question.
And Mrs. Ankerman, how can parents get involved to promote their child's success at West Portal?
Well, first of all, they need to talk with their teachers, as Ms. Ohashi was speaking about that. And again, just asking what's happening at school. That's one. The other is to become involved in the PTL. We have a fantastic PTL that is very active in our school and is planning activities not only for the students, but also for parents all the time. The school board has a new community building committee that, as we are able to get back together, and again, we're all waiting for all these mandates to be lifted and whatnot. But as soon as that happens, this community building committee, they've already started thinking of some activities that the parents can do as parents, but also as parents with their children within our school. So there's some really exciting things coming as soon as everything is open again.
Mm-hmm. And as we try to incorporate more of a hybrid learning in the future, what do you think will be the first steps for going back to the traditional class environment?
For me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think we're ever going to go back to where we were, quite frankly. We have learned so much. So if we took what we learned and threw it away again, we're actually going backwards. And that would be foolish for all of us. So what the teachers and the administrators have to do is, how can we take what we've learned and add that now to what school used to be? And I just think technology just opens the whole world up so much bigger, that there are so many, there's just, the possibilities are endless. So I don't think we'll ever go back. It's going to be different. And that's a good thing. Change is good.
And Ms. Ohashi, do you have any advice for parents?
Take time to celebrate all the little accomplishments and little victories. We got through the day. Nobody cried. Yay! Have a party. Homework got turned in time. Yay! We found our pencils in time. Yay! With all of this that's been going on in this past year, the amount of stress that everybody has been huge, and everybody deals with it separately. But going back to something that Mrs. Angerman said at the very beginning, is we hear a lot of the negatives, but not a lot of the positives. And so it's easy to forget that. So just take the time to really celebrate all the little accomplishments that you and your family have throughout the weeks, throughout the days. And then also just, you've had a long time with your kids at home. When they go back to school, give them big hugs, and we can't wait to switch places with you.
Mm-hmm. And speaking about the positives, Ms. Ohashi, are there any positive experiences that you have that you may want to incorporate in the future?
Most definitely. I'm still not 100% Google fan, but I've really embraced using the Google Classroom and using that as a different piece of the technology. It's been a lot of fun. And it's quite funny because a lot of my students do complain that we don't have what we used to have, not being able to use the full Excel or the full Microsoft suites, but really taking advantage of what we do have with our online presence to kind of eliminate some of the paperwork. Even in a computer class, I found myself using a lot of paper, and this year showed me ways that I can build a better carbon footprint. So I'll definitely be carrying that on throughout the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And thank you for answering all the questions. And I'll have Mrs. Murphy close.
Thanks, Ian. Really, thank you. You've been a great host. These are great questions. You have a great way about you when you're on camera. Yeah, this is great questions, great dialogue, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if we got to all of the questions, but if you have more, if there's anybody out there with more questions, you can ask us offline. As we've all been saying all night, and we mean it, we're always here to take anybody's questions. Or you can join in for our next West Portal Lutheran School Live. We'd love to see you then. Take care, everybody. And thanks again, Ian.